$70 horsepower. That's quite a capable little car. You can buy one of these for $59.95. A lot of money back then. If Carroll was going to race this car, he could get anywhere between about 370 380 horsepower and superchargers on it. Carroll built 2 of those in '66 just to see how big, bad, fast, and nasty he could make his Cobras. Now, Carroll had a buddy at that time, Falcon, with a pretty dress. It was a chick's car. Ayacoca wanted to market it to the hot rodders in the mid-'60s, so he brings it to Carroll Shelby to, quote, tighten it up. Carroll didn't want to touch this car. He considered it to be a mule. He said, I cannot make a racehorse out of it. But Mr. Ayacoca can be pretty convincing, so eventually he begins building Mustangs. Has anybody ever been in the back seat of an older model Mustang?
No.
It sucks back there. It's terrible. It's terrible. The other tour guide refers to the back seat of a Mustang as a birth control zone because there's nothing happening back there. Carroll takes anything and everything out of this car that does not make it go fast. He puts racing suspension on it, tunes up the engine. He can get about 306 horsepower out of a car that now weighs about 2,400 pounds. So it's not a bad little race car. It is actually very, very capable. Does anybody know why they call it a GT350? Go.
Because it was 350 feet away from his office?
Yes. Carroll was making these down at LAX, and he had 2 big buildings. One was his administrative building, one was his race building facility. And it was supposedly 350 feet between his office and the manufacturing floor. It makes it kind of nice. It doesn't mean horsepower cubic inches, so you can have one then, you can have one today. Let's come on down by this other way.
You see the hook?
I would like to mention these that car I won't stand a chance against. That car was supposed to have been destroyed because it was experimental. As a matter of fact, there are people that will swear up and down they saw it being destroyed. But it was not. It actually wound up in a field in Texas. No engine, no front end. It was found by Craig Jackson of Barrett Jackson, and he recreated it to its original design specifications. He now owns the 50 for a particular reason. Now back in '67, Carroll worked with Goodyear Tire, and they had designed a new tire called the Thunderbolt that they wanted Carroll to test. Carroll put a 427 Mark II racing engine in this car. It puts out right near 600 horsepower. Carroll took it down to San Angelo, Texas, to the Goodyear track down there, and he ran a couple of hot laps at about 150 miles an hour, then turned it over to Fred Medell, his engine guy, and Fred ran this car for 500 miles, and he topped out at 172 miles an hour on tires that look pretty much like those. Carroll would have loved to build a few more of these, but he figured that his price point would be somewhere about $10,000, so he didn't feel he could justify it. So only one of these cars was ever made, and this is the one. It is on loan to us from the owner, and the last time this one sold at auction, it sold for $2.1 million. Purchasing Ferrari, and into it kind of jerked him around, insulted him, told him he made fat ugly cars, and sent him on his way. Now Mr. Ford's wanted Max to run, so, and he was with GT40 game hunting. He stays over there quite a few years, but when he does come back, he gets a call from Lee Iacocca, who is now chairman of Chrysler, and Shelby begins building Chrysler products. We have some photographs over there on the wall. They were little Dodge Omnis, Shadows, Chargers, and occasional. That is Don Prudhomme's grandson. He was a drag racer. His nickname was the Snake. Don the Snake Prudhomme. Now what you can't see is on the front of that black shirt, that says Carroll Shelby Super Snake. Carroll built 5 of them, one he gave to Don, one he kept himself. It does put out an honest 1,000 horsepower. I have a photograph on my phone of the dyno run of this particular car, and it put out 1101 at the rear wheel with 888 foot-pounds of torque.
And how much at the crank?
I'd say somewhere north of 1,200, maybe a little 1,225, 1,250. Not exactly a daily driver. He gets about 5 miles to the gallon. Of course, uses racing fuel. We have this one here, and we actually have one out on the floor that belongs to a guy in Texas. This car is for sale. I think they go for right about $220,000. And just take a look at the profile down the side. This is an example of what we call a wide body kit. The blue one has a wide body kit. You will notice that there's a whole lot of fender flare going on in the rear. What you get is you get an additional 4.5 inches in the back and 2.5 in the front. You get upgraded adjustable Penske suspension, and you get high performance half axles, tires, wheels, and a whole new front end on the car. When you get this, you also get some additional venting for the front brakes, and there's a little scoop on the back which will actually vent your back brakes a little bit more. This option is quite popular, especially with people that have a GT500 and GT350. They'll bring it in. We will do that option for them. We have
For free? They just have it on the car?
no, just shy of $20,000. Actually, there's a waiting list of about 6 months to have that done.
Oh, wow.
Cars worldwide. We have 3 of these in the shop. We got the little convertible. There's 2 more coupes out on the floor. We pick these up from them and freshen them up and one broken. And they are for sale. I don't know the mileage on all of them. There's a little orange one out there. I think it's got about 11,000 miles. These technicians work from 4 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon, 4 days a week. That gives them Friday to do any makeup work. It also gives them the weekends with their family. Besides that, come August, you don't want to be out here at 2:30 in the afternoon. Now what we build here are Super Snakes, either Mustangs or trucks. The basic Mustang that we start with is the Mustang GT500 that has the Coyote engine. That particular engine we can get north of 850 horsepower. The basic truck is an F-150 that has the V8, and that one we can get right up at about 755 horsepower. We do a little bit of work with Raptors and Super Duties, but we don't touch the engine a whole lot. We will work with the intake and exhaust, make it breathe a little bit better, and of course we're going to give it new suspension, tires, wheels, the dress-up package, stripes, interior, all of that kind of thing. Now you can either bring us your late model vehicle, you can have one delivered here from the Ford dealer, or we can provide one for you. When your car does arrive, it's assigned to one of these 26 lifts, and it's assigned to a technician. A normal kind of easy build for us would take about 30 days. The shop supervisor tells me if he's got 2 good techs and nobody interrupts them, he can finish a car in a week and a half. Now, when it does arrive at that lift, that technician owns that car. It does not change hands. He does the brakes, he does the suspension, he does the intake, the exhaust, the radiator, he pulls out the interior, he does anything and everything to that vehicle. The only thing he doesn't do is the wide body conversion, which requires a little body work, and we have to send it off to our little body shop. And of course, if it goes into final inspection. Now, when the vehicle is done, there's a little metal plate inside the engine compartment that says built by, and then the text name is laser etched on that tag. Yeah, this is probably the best vantage point here. Real quick, you see the silver car with the red stripes? That's the little Series 1 that we have up on the rack. It's been here for about 3.5 months now, and it hasn't moved. The whole rear end is torn out of it, and I expect they're waiting for parts, or they're manufacturing some parts. Those little cars are about 80% General Motors. Now, back over straight ahead there where that well-lit area is our little fiberglass shop. This guy builds all the hoods for the Mustangs and the trucks. He also does all the fiberglass panels for the wide body kit. And then way back in the corner, there's a roll-up door that's hard to see. That's where our little body shop is. Pretty dirty back there, and they generally keep that door closed. But they do an absolutely excellent job in putting that panel on to where the car looks like it came from the factory that way. It certainly doesn't look like a backyard slacker. Let's wander down. Yeah, I was standing
sorry.
This one was built a few years ago, so it has a Kenny Bell supercharger on it versus Wiggle. These cars that are all wrapped up. A little overflow from our final assembly line, the final inspection line over there. These guys are getting their stripes going. They're all you know, I'm good with the older models, but in 19, 20, 21, they all look alike to me. Mustang parked right in the way, but directly behind that Mustang, that black Mustang that's all wrapped up, is the replica of the car that Carol showed you. The bad part about that car is nothing more than a tubular frame that you see on it. There's actually no installation anywhere. That car was tail back and then exited on whatever door.
That's got the wide body kit on that GT350 from Shelby American.
Way back.
So those would be the two things you'd say, not the wide body kit, not so much the Penske suspension. Those would be
Penske's nice addition, but you bypass the Magna Ride, and in doing that, you cause issues. If it's a track car exclusively, then it's not a big deal. You can do that, and the Penske suspensions, they're set it and forget it. But for a daily driver, I wouldn't mess with that.
Okay, so just those two things you would suggest.
Yeah.
What about anything with the cooling? Is it already come pre?
What yours is brand new 2020, so you've got all the upgraded cooling on there. You should have the diff cooler, the engine oil cooler, the transmission cooler. Anything beyond that, we do offer a radiator. The Mustang GT radiator is interchangeable with the GT350s. Also our aluminum coolant reservoir, that will increase your capacity and give you a lot of better cooling than what's right on there.
Okay.
But yeah, I would look at that if you're going to start addressing the cooling. It should be sufficient in stock form. When you go out there to the Ford Performance School, take a look at their cars there, because they're dedicated track cars, and you'll see. So keep an eye on what they replace.
And I'll ask them.
They typically don't replace much on those cars. They're pretty stock. They put a cage in there and some safety equipment, but that's their big upgrades that they put on.
Okay, perfect. So that's about it. Oh, one last question. Rims. So I don't have the R. I have the 350. So it comes with the 10-inch and then the 10.5.
Cast aluminum wheels, yes. Look at getting into a forged set of wheels. Our GT350 wheel sets are nice. We also make custom wheel sets if you wanted to do something even more high-end than that. That's a good middle-of-the-road price-wise. It's hard to beat for a forged wheel. But if you want to, I do offer custom forged wheels where I can do GT350R fit in it, where you get an 11 and 11.5-inch wheel set, which is going to be a little wider than what they're running.
Yeah, because I think the 350 is 10.5 and 11 in the back, right?
Yes.
And the R is 11 and 11.5?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Good. So how do I get information on that? We're done.
So he's got a few options on here. What that was with the shifter. This shifter is an additional $700. Because he got he didn't get the ball. He's got a ball. You want to feel the shift on that. Check that thing out.
The other light blue cars. It's raised up.
You're also going to want to get into the custom computer that we put in these cars as well. It's not available just yet, but this is something that will be available in the future, so that you can raise and lower the car. For a track guy, this is an awesome setup, better than the Ford Performance.
So how do they make it like a coilover?
It's got a threaded collar that goes on there with an adjustable perch. On here, I can get a light on this.
I can see it. Man.
See the see the threaded? No, it's right here. Yeah, I see that. So that's the adjuster on the front. So this perch here, you use a spanner wrench and you can crank it, lower it down, raise it. The threads go all the way up to here. So it gives you about 2.5 inches of adjustability on all four corners. And then you got another little spring down here. So it's a pretty trick setup.
So see, this is better than what you're telling me.
Yes.
So what was something like that cost?
Not sure just yet. Like I said, this is something that's coming down the pipeline. Right now it's exclusive to the GT500 SE.
But you will put it on the 350.
It is going to be for any Magna Ride Mustangs.
Okay.
But if you do, again, you do have to use it with the PCM, with the computer. So we pull the stock Magna Ride computer out. That's what this guy is, and we replace him with an aftermarket unit that we designed for our suspension.
Awesome. Those are the GT500, man.
Oh yeah, the carbon fiber track pack set. It's about $6,000 per wheel, not including the tire. See, guys that have these cars are all on the fence over the wide body. They want to do a wide body, but they're worried because they can't use their carbon wheel. They said, man, sell the carbon wheels, offsets the cost of the wide body.